Hey guys, here I am again, Barry with Barry's 8-Track and Classic Car Radio Repair. This time we're demonstrating a 8-Track radio out of a '74 Thunderbird. This comes from George in Atlanta, Georgia. And there's a couple of important notes on this type of unit. This is typically called this is also the Lincoln Mark IV. This unit's used in a few different cars, but there's a couple of weird things about it. For one thing, it uses a solenoid to eject the tape, and it's a tiny solenoid that demands a lot of newtons of force to pull back. That solenoid frequently burns out, and so on most of these units, not this one, but on most of these, I end up putting a mechanical lever in place of the eject solenoid, which takes the place of this balance control, and then the balance is done using the virtual control that's done from the tone control. As I mentioned, this one appears to have a good eject solenoid. Now, there's another weird thing about this eject function that Ford built into this unit. It's not like a switch that ejects the tape. It basically depends on circuit. It depends on this weird circuit equilibrium thing where it's not a switch that activates the eject function. It's the disturbance of the equilibrium. Now, what that basically amounts to is this little circuit that operates this little equilibrium circuit is powered up at all times, even when the radio is turned off and even when the car is turned off, which means that circuit's going to burn out sooner or later. This one, I didn't even check to see if this one, I believe it did eject when it came in, but I got rid of that circuit and I made it just straight because that circuit had an extra green wire coming out of the unit that connected to the car power, and that had to be powered up at all times before the ignition switch, I believe, or maybe after the ignition switch. But at any rate, the tape eject function is going to be the same as it was before. It's just going to be a lot more reliable. To eject the tape on this unit, you just push lightly on any of the station preset buttons. Pushing lightly on any of these buttons will activate the tape eject function without that extra wire coming out, without having to worry about hooking it up. And the only drawback is that it won't automatically eject the tape when you turn the radio off. That's the only thing that will be different on the eject function with my modification that greatly improves reliability. And I think most guys can remember to pull the tape out when they're done listening to it. So I don't consider the auto eject function when turning the unit off nearly as important as the unit being reliable for years and years. So on that note, I think that's the last special note on this type. Oh, one more thing. When you're packing this type of radio, you have to remember that this little mounting stud is cast iron. It's not like steel. It's not like machine steel. It's cast iron. And if you don't allow for this in your packing, this could break off, and then you're going to have a heck of a problem figuring out how to mount the radio, because this is one of the mounting studs that your bolt goes through. So when packing your radio, you kind of want to allow for this thing. You don't want this thing sticking out in the box work and bump against the, like the bottom of the box or the side of the box and break off. So that's the last. I promise that's the last note on this model that I'm going to say right now. Let's go ahead and fire it up. Make sure everything works before you send it back to the customer. George has requested, of course, the modern internal FM conversion with the Bluetooth and USB functions. And let's make sure that we installed an aux input, and we did. So let's go ahead and test everything before we send it back. I've got it set to AM at the moment, to the one strong AM station I get. We're going to keep it on talk radio while we test the virtual balance and fader functions, so that I don't get nailed for copyright issues playing music. So let's go ahead and turn it on to AM.
Be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center, located
Okay,
in
and we're gonna now the balance control still does its job because I didn't have to change the eject thing, but the front rear fader is now on the tone control. It's no longer handled by the fader control, because fader controls are different than regular controls. They don't last as long. They've got a really high failure rate, so I never reuse the fader. I always use the tone control as a virtual fader because that's going to be a longer lasting control. So given that, let's go ahead and activate our virtual and fader functions. You're going to need the speakers.
1815 Iron
Left,
Spring
right,
Road
balance.
in Prescott.
I'm not
All the way
home
left.
now, and I love my new little
Right.
apartment, but there's something I miss.
Left.
Watching my mom garden in
Right.
her backyard. She
Okay,
gave those flowers
center.
and plants such a personal loving touch that I missed. Well, I just visited
Okay,
my
now I'm
local
going to
garden
activate
center, and
the
they gave
front
me
rear
some great
fader,
ideas. Now,
which
when
we
I
do
look
by
out my
turning
patio
our tone
window, I
control
see the beautiful plants they suggested,
clockwise twice.
teeming with
So here we
bright
go.
Arizona flowers. It's like being with Mom in her
Oh,
garden.
I should have started in the center. Try it again.
Online at Plant.
Fader adjust.
There we go. So now the same control is adjusting your front rear speaker balance. There's all the way front, all the way rear, front, rear. Okay, so we know that's working. Put a timeout.
Fader set.
Okay, so we don't need these anymore. Let's make sure the Bluetooth goes into pairing mode.
Bluetooth ready to pair.
Okay, so that's working properly. Let's make sure it plays music stored on a USB stick. Gonna play my radio commercial real quick here. Okay, so we know the USB's working, right? Let's go over to FM, which we do on this type of unit by turning it off, then right back on with about half a second. So here we go, off, on. Okay, now we're on FM. I have all 5 presets set to stations in my area, so we can get through this test really quick.
La mayoría y
Okay, so there's our AM. Let's try the 8-track. Here we go. Make sure we got both speakers, or all 4 speakers in, rather. Alrighty, eject, and there we go. It releases the tape so you can grab onto it, and it brings the radio back automatically. Let's test the dial light, make sure that's working. And it is. You can't see it, but I can see it because it's just a soft green glow that you can't see with the room lighting. So everything's cool. She's ready to go back, and I'm ready to get on the next video. And once again, I'm Barry with Barry's 8-Track and Classic Car Radio Repair. And you just see what I can do to your ancient AM 8-Track radio. I can make it into an AM FM 8-Track with much brighter 8-Track sound because my preamp goes in place of the original factory preamp. And then, of course, we can add the Bluetooth and USB features. We also offer HD radio. Every job that's a conversion gets an aux input that's added automatically. There's no extra charge for that, so that you can hook your MP3 player, or I guess I won't say phone anymore because most phones are now Bluetooth equipped, and you would use the Bluetooth function to stream music from your phone to the radio, and also to make hands-free phone calls. So thank you very much, George, for your business all the way from Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you guys for watching, listening, and we'll see you next time.